What if the drink you trust most, the one you've cracked open every morning for decades, was quietly plotting your downfall? The FDA has just added 5 wildly popular beverages to its national recall list, warning that some may be tainted with bacteria, plastic shards, or undisclosed chemical ingredients. For older Americans on fixed incomes who can't afford another hospital bill, the thought that even your daily safe drink could turn on you is like realizing your own smoke alarm might be wired to start the fire. How many sips have we taken thinking we were buying comfort when we were really buying risk wrapped in brand labels? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on 5 popular drinks the FDA just added to the recall list. And don't worry, because by the end of each part, we'll show you which safe products can still be trusted. Number 1. Topo Chico. The recall hammer came down this past June like a trapdoor snapping open under the polished feet of Topo Chico. One moment it was sparkling on the shelves at Costco across Texas, Louisiana, Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico, sold in dainty 16.9-ounce glass bottles that gleamed like they'd been dipped in moonlight. The next, it was being yanked off about 40 retail floors after the FDA announced the water could be contaminated with Pseudomonas aeruginosa, a bacteria infamous for turning minor scrapes into ICU tickets for anyone whose immune system is already limping. Coca-Cola issued the voluntary recall in its signature PR tone, so soft and syrupy you almost forget the part where it warns that the bacteria can invade your lungs, blood, urinary tract, or wounds like a burglar with a skeleton key. Affected lots included 11A2543, 12A2543, and 13A2541, sold between May 20th and May 29th. No illnesses have been confirmed so far, which feels about as comforting as hearing your smoke detector say, "probably fine." But this recall didn't appear out of a clear blue spring. It bubbled up from a well of older scandals that Coca-Cola has tried to cork. Consumer Reports testing found that Topo Chico once carried nearly 9.76 parts per trillion of PFAS, forever chemicals so clingy they make cling wrap look commitment-phobic. These substances are linked to cancers and immune problems, and they build up in the body like rust on an old truck, no matter how often the company promises it scrubbed them out. Every sip you took in the name of purity may have been quietly installing new tenants in your bloodstream who have no intention of paying rent. Even now, critics whispered that the company's internal cleanup efforts were more about optics than science, like mopping the floor while the ceiling caves in. Then came the carnival marketing tricks. Topo Chico's Margarita Hard Seltzer got dragged into lawsuits claiming it misled buyers to believe it contained tequila, which it didn't. The cases fizzled in court, but not before showing how this brand sometimes behaves like a magician with sticky fingers, more invested in illusions than honesty. And behind the curtain, whistleblowers described water being drawn from aquifers tainted with pesticide runoff near the Monterey plant, where industrial metals and farm chemicals swirl together like drunk cousins at a family reunion. One former engineer alleged filtration membranes went untouched for over 18 months, while turbidity alarms were simply turned off, as if ignoring the problem might make it dissolve. Labor watchdogs painted an even darker mural. Workers were reportedly paid under $2.50 an hour while sweating in 110-degree heat without air conditioning, gloves, or basic protections. Some were fired after complaining about chlorine burns on their arms. When injuries occurred, the company allegedly settled with envelopes of cash instead of legal claims. Industrial hush money slipped into cracked palms. To older Americans who know what it means to stand on aching knees for a paycheck, that kind of detail doesn't just sting. It gnaws at the soul like a rusty gear grinding through bone. And yet their leaked marketing decks showed plans to target seniors seeking healthy hydration, meaning this brand has been aiming its poison darts straight at retirees clinging to their health, like the last rafter in a flood. The FDA even tagged one quiet withdrawal as a Class 2 health hazard, bureaucratic poetry for, "This can hurt you, but let's whisper about it." Now every cheerful pop of that bottle cap sounds less like refreshment and more like the click of a revolver chamber. If you still want your fizz without the Russian roulette, skip the poison tuxedo and reach for Spindrift sparkling water, which releases third-party contaminant reports and uses real fruit juice, or Gerolsteiner mineral water, sourced under strict EU labor and safety rules. Even Perrier, San Pellegrino, and Saratoga sparkling water publish tighter quality controls and treat their workers like humans, not disposable bottle caps, because hydration shouldn't feel like gambling your retirement on a rigged slot machine. Number 2. High Noon. High Noon loves to swagger into the store freezer like it just stepped off a yacht in Miami, its pastel cans flashing the smug grin of a vacation postcard. It wants you to think it's summer in a can, crisp, harmless, and practically humming Jimmy Buffett songs. But peel off the beachy disguise and you'll see what the FDA saw this July: chaos in a can. After a colossal mix-up at a co-packing facility, vodka seltzer from High Noon was sealed inside Celsius Astro Vibe energy drink cans, creating a landmine for anyone trying to avoid alcohol, especially the older crowd juggling heart meds like they're spinning plates on a windy porch. These misfit cans, shipped to 8 states including Florida, Michigan, and New York, carried lot codes that sounded more like missile coordinates than beverages, and the FDA ordered them off shelves before someone's morning pick-me-up turned into an accidental happy hour. Imagine thinking you're sipping an energy boost, only to find out you've been day drinking by surprise. It's like asking for sweet tea and getting moonshine with a caffeine chaser, and the chaos didn't stop at the label. Celsius, whose branding ended up on these vodka grenades, has spent years playing fast and loose with consumer trust. They were sued in a class action for plastering no preservatives across their cans while quietly using citric acid, paying out $7.8 million to settle. Then came the legal cage match with rapper Flo Rida, who claimed they stiffed him out of his brand ambassador contract. The court agreed and handed him $82.6 million, the kind of number that makes even Wall Street executives choke on their kale smoothies. On top of that, watchdogs have roasted Celsius for burying its caffeine content, approximately 200 milligrams per can, behind fluffy buzzwords like essential energy and wellness, giving shoppers the illusion they're buying a spa in a can instead of a heart palpitation with glitter on it. The Guardian even called it a troubling halo of health, and for good reason. For older Americans already walking a tightrope with their blood pressure, a hidden caffeine bomb is about as friendly as a scorpion in your slipper. Meanwhile, High Noon surfed that health halo like a con artist on a boogie board. Leaked marketing decks showed them aiming co-branded campaigns at college campuses and youth-heavy social media platforms, despite federal regulators warning against pushing alcohol at younger audiences. It's like slapping organic on a stick of dynamite and selling it at a high school fundraiser. Even worse, photos from inside the Astro Vibe plant leaked showing rat droppings peppered across conveyor belts, flavor tanks sweating chemical leaks, and workers wearing masks blackened with mold. OSHA reports backed them up. 17 safety violations in one quarter, including failing to sanitize food contact equipment. So while the label sang beach tunes, the inside looked more like a crime scene from CSI Margaritaville. And if you thought this was a one-time disaster, think again. Whistleblowers said supervisors forced staff to skip mandatory cleaning shutdowns to hit production quotas, and one lawsuit accused them of keeping filler lines running while motors sparked, showering aluminum shavings into open cans. The company quietly settled, naturally, no apology, just hush money shoved into calloused hands like casino chips. For older Americans scraping by on fixed incomes, trusting a brand like this feels like boarding a cruise ship you know is held together with duct tape and denial. High Noon built its boom by sneaking into discount chain freezers and luring budget-conscious older drinkers with the promise of light refreshment, but forgot to mention the caffeine grenades, bacterial roulette, and lawsuit confetti baked inside. It's not a beach party. It's Russian roulette with fruit flavoring and a side of mold. If you still want bubbles without the cardiac cliff dive, ditch the pastel time bombs and reach for Cutwater Spirits Tequila Soda, which is produced under strict HACCP sanitation audits and carries clear caffeine-free certification, or Ramona Wine Spritz, which uses organic fruit and allergen-free packaging. Even Seek Out Hard Seltzer and Juneshine Hard Kombucha publish full contaminant testing and labor safety reports. They might cost a few cents more, but at least they won't serve your heart a pink slip halfway through happy hour. Number 3. Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has spent over a century bottling Americana, selling itself as the liquid soundtrack to backyards, ball games, and birthdays. But lately, that iconic red can looks less like cheer and more like a warning flare. This March, the FDA slapped Coca-Cola Original Taste with a Class 2 recall after more than 10,000 cans were found potentially laced with plastic fragments from disintegrating machinery gaskets. These cans were quietly pulled from shelves in Illinois and Wisconsin. Coca-Cola framed it as precautionary, but the FDA's classification means they admit the plastic could cause choking, internal cuts, or gut damage. For older Americans on blood thinners or battling fragile digestion, drinking one could feel less like refreshment and more like swallowing a blender blade wrapped in nostalgia. And this wasn't a one-off slip. FDA audits have flagged persistent contamination risks in multiple U.S. bottling plants. Conveyor belts lined with black mold, ferrous metal shavings sloughing from corroded mixing tanks, and sanitation shutdowns skipped to hit production quotas. One former maintenance tech described scraping tar-like gunk off syrup pipes, while supervisors barked to hose it off and get the line running. That's not quality control, that's rolling the dice with the public's intestines. Critics have long argued Coca-Cola relies on the sheer size of its distribution empire to drown out scrutiny. If you flood enough shelves, people stop asking what's floating inside the cans. But the real poison isn't just physical, Coca-Cola has faced waves of lawsuits over PFAS, forever chemicals found in its Simply Juice line, with a class action alleging the levels dwarfed federal water safety guidelines despite all natural labels. The company fought the case on technicalities rather than confronting the chemical issue, and a judge allowed a revised complaint to move forward just last summer. Then there's the plastic pollution hypocrisy. After years of promising reusable packaging, Coca-Cola quietly shifted to boasting about recycled content percentages, a move environmental groups called pure greenwashing, like bragging about repainting a sinking ship instead of fixing the holes. Each year, the brand ranks among the world's top plastic polluters, and watchdogs say its sustainability goals are more smoke than soda. Meanwhile, the ethical rot runs even deeper than the syrup vats. Human rights advocates have accused Coca-Cola bottling affiliates of union busting, using child labor in sugar supply chains, and draining aquifers in drought-stricken regions until farms collapsed. In Colombia, the Sinaltranil versus Coca-Cola case accused its franchise network of complicity in the murders of union leaders. In India, villages reported local wells running dry while Coke plants kept pumping. The brand denies responsibility, but for older Americans who grew up trusting that red can, hearing open happiness while reading about farmers digging empty wells hits like a betrayal wrapped in cellophane. What twists the knife is how precisely Coca-Cola has targeted the people least able to afford the fallout. Leaked marketing decks boasted about focusing on older, budget-conscious shoppers in rural counties, the same crowd living on Social Security checks, where one ER visit from a swallowed plastic shard could burn through a month of groceries. And when accidents do happen, the legal team sweeps in with non-disclosure agreements, cutting hush-money checks while victims vanish from public view. It's like watching a magician pull a rabbit from a hat. Only this hat is blood-stained and the rabbit is gagged. For older Americans, this is more than just a safety scare. It's the slow realization that the friend who's always been at your table might have been smiling through sharpened teeth. Loyalty means nothing to a machine that will grind itself to pieces and feed you the shrapnel with a wink. Coca-Cola still says open happiness. Lately it feels more like open surgery. If you want something classic without the catastrophe, reach for Reed's Craft Ginger Ale, made from fresh pressed ginger and transparent batch testing, or Boylan Cane Cola, brewed in small batches with third-party safety audits. Even Virgil's Root Beer and Sprecher Puma Cola publish their lab results and source maps. They fizz just fine, or 15% or 15 dub, without the plastic shards, corporate cover-ups, or mold-flavored heartbreak. Number 4. Clover Valley. Clover Valley instant coffee sits on Dollar General shelves like the patron saint of penny pinching. A jar of morning survival that promises to keep the lights on in your eyelids without burning holes in your wallet. But pop that cheerful yellow lid and you might as well be unscrewing a time bomb. This August, the FDA announced a recall of 3 lots of Clover Valley instant coffee after a consumer reported finding glass fragments inside. The jars, 8 ounces, marked with UPC 876941004069 and lot codes L-5163, L-5164, and L-5165, were sold across 48 states between early July and late July, and the FDA warns that swallowing those shards could carve through your teeth, throat, or intestines like a burglar with a box cutter. Dollar General has urged customers to return them for refunds, but for older Americans living on Social Security checks, who just want one safe, steady cup to start the day, the idea that their morning coffee might come laced with glass feels less like pick-me-up and more like knock you down. And this isn't just about one rogue batch. It's about a pattern of corner cutting dressed up as frugality. Dollar General has been fined millions by OSHA for unsafe conditions, blocked emergency exits, fire extinguishers buried behind stockpiles, exposed electrical panels dangling like loose teeth. In one settlement just last year, the company paid $12 million for hundreds of violations, promising systematic changes, while workers whispered that stores still skip basic safety checks to keep profits fat. The same philosophy seems to echo through the Clover Valley supply chain. Food inspectors documented filthy roasting sites with extensive rodent activity, droppings in raw bean silos, and weeks-long gaps between cleanings. One whistleblower claimed they pulled bird feathers from the grinding hoppers and were told to just keep running it. Your morning mug may have simmered with pigeon fluff before it ever hit the shelf, and they still have the gall to call it crafted with care. The human cost behind that cheap caffeine is even darker. Former workers described roasting shifts in 115-degree heat without ventilation, where elderly and disabled staff were pushed to handle 300-degree machinery barehanded and told to urinate in bottles to save production time. One 62-year-old worker reportedly collapsed from heat stroke and died. The family was handed under $30,000 in hush money. For anyone who's ever spent decades grinding their body down on a factory floor just to scrape by, that's not thrift. It's cruelty shrink-wrapped as value. Even the contents of the jar don't tell the truth. Independent watchdog labs found Clover Valley's 100% pure coffee actually contained over 22% roasted soy husks and corn filler, cheap sweepings masquerading as beans, a trick that can trigger severe allergic reactions and cheat customers out of both money and safety. Yet their marketing still beams about honoring hardworking families, as if slipping allergens and debris into grandma's cup is some patriotic service. It's like stuffing sawdust in a steak and calling it gourmet, and expecting applause while you do it. What makes the betrayal sting worse is who they've aimed at. Clover Valley has been the centerpiece of Dollar General's senior savings. Promos pitched to older, low-income shoppers like a warm handshake, while quietly serving them contamination cocktails. Every 2-for-1 jar came wrapped in slogans about security, even as it rattled with hidden glass. For retirees scraping by, it's not just about tainted coffee, it's about being targeted because they're easy prey. It's exploitation disguised as convenience, and it leaves a bitter aftertaste no sugar can hide. If you still want your caffeine without the glass shards and rodent garnish, skip the booby trap brew and reach for Mount Hagen Organic Instant Coffee, certified fair trade under strict EU contamination audits, or Waka Colombian Instant Coffee, which publishes independent purity reports for every batch. Even Nescafé Taster's Choice and Café Bustelo Instant Espresso offer transparent sourcing and clean lab certifications. They'll wake you up, without trying to send you straight to the morgue. Number 5. Herbalife. Herbalife's relaxation tea drapes itself across supermarket shelves like a soft lullaby trapped in a paper sachet, promising serenity for the weary like a hug you can sip. But peel back that pastel packaging, and what tumbles out is less calm and more chaos steeped in corporate cologne. This past July, the FDA flagged nearly 6,000 units of this so-called relaxation tea for using the wrong ingredient from a supplier, triggering a nationwide Class 2 recall. The lot code D925507J02, stamped with an expiration date of April 11, 2027, became the center of alarm. Herbal teas are marketed like nature's lullabies, yet this blunder means anyone from Maine to Mexico could have unknowingly brewed a chemical wildcard. Even without confirmed injuries, regulators warned the misingredient could spark allergic reactions, drug interactions, or sudden physiological shocks, especially in older Americans whose medications already read like a CVS receipt. For retirees just trying to wind down their heart rates, Realizing their bedtime tea might rev them up into a cardiac drum, Solo feels less like relaxation and more like Russian roulette in a teacup. And behind that soothing steam rises a long, sour history. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission once fined Herbalife $200 million for what it called deceptive income claims, after finding the company had lured thousands of low-income and elderly recruits into selling its products with promises of quitting their jobs and getting rich. Most instead ended up stockpiling unsold powder tubs in garages like pastel tombstones of shattered savings. Then came the corruption scandal. In 2020, Herbalife paid $122 million to settle criminal and civil charges for bribing Chinese officials and falsifying financial records, including a $55 million criminal penalty. While executives flew private jets, their distributors were left selling overpriced protein. Shakes to their neighbors just to keep the lights on. Like hamsters spinning wheels while the corporate cats sip champagne. Meanwhile, the products themselves keep drawing side eyes from toxicologists. Over the years, independent case reports from multiple countries have linked certain Herbalife blends to liver damage and acute hepatitis, though the company denies responsibility. Critics argue their teas, shakes, and supplements live in a regulatory twilight, too unregulated to guarantee safety, too aggressively marketed to be harmless. Even Herbalife's own Wikipedia entry lists hepatotoxicity as a known controversy, which is a chilling word to see anywhere near something you're supposed to drink while wearing pajamas. And the supply chain story curdles like spoiled milk. NGO audits have accused Herbalife's botanical farms of relying on child labor, while leaked warehouse photos showed leaking chemical drums next to tea pallets stored in 90-degree heat. Whistleblowers describe moldy leaves being doused with artificial fragrance oils to hide rot before being repackaged. An internal memo even bragged this salvage process saved the company over $1 million each quarter. For older shoppers seeking peace, the thought that their nightcap might have been scraped off a compost heap and perfumed like a funeral parlor is enough to make sleep itself feel hazardous. What makes it sting even sharper is how deliberately they've targeted the vulnerable. Leaked playbooks instructed distributors to focus on elderly fixed-income groups, described as high trust, low resistance, while former sellers filed lawsuits claiming they were told to lie about medical benefits, pushing claims like heals arthritis or reverses dementia. That isn't just marketing malpractice. It's playing doctor with monopoly credentials, and the patients are seniors who don't have the luxury of one more medical gamble. Herbalife doesn't just sell tea, it weaponizes trust, then invoices you for the betrayal. The cruelest part is how gentle it looks. The box whispers about wellness. The name hums like a lullaby, and the marketing beams with the soft glow of self-care. But for older Americans trying to sip their way into a quiet retirement, learning that their relaxation might be steeped in bribery, exploitation, and organ toxicity is like realizing their security blanket was sewn from barbed wire. Herbalife didn't just break trust, it wrapped it in tissue paper, sold it for profit, and left their customers to sweep up the shards. If you still want real calm without the corporate corruption, try traditional medicinals organic nighty-night tea, made from certified fair trade herbs with full contaminant transparency, or Yogi Soothing Caramel Bedtime Tea. Chakra eats, which undergoes third-party heavy metal and pesticide testing for every batch. Even Puka Herbal Nighttime Tea and Celestial Seasonings Sleepy Time Extra List. Complete lab results and ethical sourcing. They'll help you rest. Without putting your liver or your conscience on life support. Before the next sip betrays your trust again, subscribe now. And let's keep exposing what's really poisoning our plates.
Thank you for watching today's video all the way through. If you found the content helpful, don't forget to click like and subscribe to stay updated to our latest daily videos. Now feel free to check out other feature videos currently shown on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.